The alien court prepared for farewell. A human warrior refused to let her die. Inside the cockpit, Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrests of her chair, her eyes fixed on the planet slowly growing larger on the view screen. Zithra, a world of towering crystalline spires and floating cities, its surface glittering under the light of two suns. Its beauty was unmatched in the known galaxy, but Alara knew better than to be distracted. She had been called here on a mission, one that was as dangerous as it was mysterious. The message she had received was simple, almost cryptic. Your skills are needed in the court. Lives depend on it. Alara had read and reread the message a dozen times. She had been a warrior all her life, trained to fight, survive, and protect. Diplomacy was not her usual territory, yet something in the tone of the message suggested urgency. Someone was in danger, and she could not ignore it. The planet's atmosphere glimmered like liquid silver as her ship pierced the clouds. Below, she could see the Court of Stars, a massive palace that seemed to float on the air itself. It was a structure unlike any she had ever seen, towers of transparent crystal spiraling upwards, connected by bridges that glowed faintly with energy. Light shimmered from every surface, reflecting the two suns in dazzling patterns. Alara's ship descended slowly, landing on a platform carved directly into the top of the highest spire. The platform hummed with energy, holding her craft firmly in place as she stepped onto the surface. The air was thin but breathable, scented faintly with something sweet like alien flowers she could not name. "Captain Voss," a voice said behind her. Alara turned to see a tall alien figure approaching. Its skin shimmered in shades of blue and silver, eyes deep pools of violet. "I am Thalia, your liaison to the court. Follow me." Alara nodded and followed silently. Thalia moved gracefully, each step precise and controlled. She tried to memorize every detail of the court as they walked. The walls were not walls at all but energy barriers, flowing and shifting in colors that seemed impossible to name. Figures of many shapes and sizes walked these halls, some with wings, some with multiple limbs, all moving with a sense of purpose that suggested centuries of culture and tradition. Finally, they reached a large chamber where the court convened. It was a circular hall, its floor made of a crystal so clear it seemed to vanish under their feet. Around the edges, seats rose like tiers in a stadium, each occupied by a member of the court. Some were humanoid, others were completely alien. Amorphous shapes of shifting color, creatures with scales and feathers, beings that seemed almost made of light. At the center of the room stood a figure that immediately drew Alara's attention. She could not explain why, but the moment she saw this being, a strange sense of recognition and urgency washed over her. The alien was tall and elegant, its form graceful yet commanding. Its eyes, a soft green, held wisdom and kindness, but also a hint of fear. "This is Lyrina," Thalia whispered. "She is the reason you are here." Alara's heart tightened. Lyrina was surrounded by guards, each one emanating a faint energy field that signaled authority and power. Yet even surrounded, Lyrina did not show fear. Instead, she stood straight, head held high, as though she were ready to face whatever fate awaited her. "Why is she here?" Alara asked quietly. "What has she done?" "She is accused of betraying the court," Thalia replied, voice low. "Her actions are seen as dangerous. The council believes she threatened the stability of the entire sector. Soon, she will face judgment and execution. Execution. The word hit Alara harder than she expected. She had faced death before, seen it, caused it, but there was something different about this. Lyrina was not a soldier, not a warrior. She was a diplomat, a negotiator, someone who worked to prevent conflict, not start it. And yet the court was prepared to end her life. Alara's hands clenched at her sides. She had promised herself she would never stand by while injustice occurred, no matter where in the galaxy it happened. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Then I will not let her die," she said, almost aloud. Thalia's eyes widened, but he said nothing. Instead, he led her to a side chamber away from the eyes of the court. "You must understand," he said quietly. "Interfering is dangerous. The court is ancient. Their rules are old and their power is immense. No human has ever challenged it." Alara's lips pressed together. "Then maybe it's time a human did." The side chamber overlooked the main hall. From this vantage point, she could see the court members whispering among themselves, their expressions unreadable. Lyrina was led to a raised platform, the ceremonial space where the judgment would be delivered. The guards were precise, every movement a display of discipline and authority. Alara studied the scene, noting the layout, the guards' positions, and the energy fields surrounding the platform. Humans had certain advantages, she reminded herself. Creativity, adaptability, courage. While the aliens relied on centuries of protocol, she could think on her feet, improvise, and act unpredictably. That might be the only edge she had in a situation designed to trap her. As the council began their deliberation, the tension in the room became almost tangible. Lyrina remained calm, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She spoke quietly to one of the guards, and Alara caught fragments of her words. "There is still time, you must believe in the truth." Alara felt a surge of respect. This was not just courage, it was resolve. Lyrina had faith that reason and justice could prevail even here, even in a place governed by rigid traditions and fear. The council's leader, a massive figure of shimmering energy, raised a hand. The hall fell silent. Every being turned their attention to the platform, their faces, or what passed for faces, showing anticipation, curiosity, or disdain. "Lyrina of Zithra," the leader intoned, voice like rolling thunder, "you stand accused of betrayal against this court and all its members." "How do you respond?" Lyrina's voice was clear and unwavering. "I acted to save lives, I acted to prevent war. I did not betray the court. I served it with the highest loyalty, even when others chose fear over reason." A murmur ran through the hall. Some members seemed shocked, others angered. Alara could see the debate raging in their eyes. She knew that the council's decision was likely already made. Traditions like this were not easily broken, yet she also saw that doubt had entered the room. One small crack could grow, and that was all she needed. Alara's mind raced. She could not intervene directly, not yet, but she could observe, gather information, and plan. She noted which council members seemed sympathetic, which ones were hostile, and which were neutral. She also studied the guards, the layout, and the energy barriers. Everything mattered. Every detail could be used to save Lyrina. Hours passed. The court discussed, debated, and argued. Lyrina remained calm, answering questions with precision and logic, but time was running out. The ceremony of farewell, the formal execution, was scheduled for the next cycle of the suns. Alara left the side chamber and walked among the observers, pretending to study the architecture. She could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes on her, but she did not flinch. Her human presence was unusual here, and she knew it drew attention. She welcomed it. Humans were underestimated. That would be her advantage. By the time she returned to the side chamber, the council had adjourned for the evening. Lyrina was led back to her private quarters, her expression calm but weary. Alara watched her go, noting the guards' movements, the security protocols, and the small details that might be exploited later. That night, alone in a small chamber provided for her, Alara reviewed everything she had observed. She made notes, sketched diagrams, and formed plans. She knew the next day would be the most dangerous yet. Every action had to be precise, every move calculated, and yet she could not let fear stop her. Lyrina's life depended on it. Finally, she leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. She could hear the distant hum of the city outside, the soft pulses of alien energy that seemed to flow through the walls themselves. Somewhere out there, Lyrina slept, or at least tried to. Alara whispered into the darkness, a promise she would not break. "I will not let you die." And with that thought, she prepared herself for the trials that awaited in the Court of Stars. The sun on Zithra rose slowly, bathing the crystalline towers in shades of gold and violet. Its light scattered through the floating platforms, creating a kaleidoscope of colors across the city. From her vantage point in the observation chamber, Captain Alara Voss watched the city wake. The beauty of Zithra never failed to amaze her, yet she had no time for admiration. Lyrina's fate hung over the court like a storm cloud, and Alara knew the coming hours would test every skill she possessed. Thalir appeared silently behind her, his violet eyes reflecting concern. "The council will reconvene in less than a cycle. You must decide how you will act," he said quietly. Alara turned, her expression firm. "I need to understand why they want her dead, not just the accusation, but the people behind it." Thalir nodded, leading her through a series of hidden passages. They moved through areas of the palace rarely seen by outsiders, halls that seemed to pulse with energy and history. Statues of alien heroes and scholars lined the walls, their forms made of shimmering crystal. Alara felt the weight of the court's centuries of tradition pressing on her. "This way." Thalia whispered, stopping before a doorway that shimmered with a faint barrier. This room contains the council's records, decisions, debates, votes. Some are open to trusted guests. Others, less so. Alara stepped through the barrier, feeling a tingling energy across her skin. Inside, the room was filled with floating panels of light, displaying streams of information. Alara's eyes scanned the data, quickly learning to interpret alien symbols. It was a skill she had developed in training, the ability to understand new systems fast. She discovered the accusation against Lyrina. She had made contact with a neighboring star system, Zithara's rival, to negotiate peace. The council interpreted this act as betrayal because it bypassed their authority. Some factions believed that Lyrina's actions had weakened Zithara's position. But as Alara read further, she realized the truth was very different. Lyrina had discovered that a rogue faction within the council planned to provoke war between systems for personal gain. By contacting the rival planet, she had prevented a catastrophe. Her betrayal was actually a brave act of diplomacy. Alara's jaw tightened. This was worse than she had imagined. Lyrina was not guilty, she was a hero. And yet the court's rigid laws threatened to end her life before anyone could recognize the truth. Thalier's voice broke her thoughts. You see now why intervention is dangerous. Even with proof, the council may not act in your favor. They fear change more than injustice. I understand, Alara said, but fear will not stop me. Humans do not back down when lives are at stake. They spent the next hours examining the court's members, learning who could be swayed and who was firmly loyal to tradition. Some counselors seemed rigid, their minds set by centuries of protocol. Others appeared thoughtful, listening, observing, considering. These would be the key to her plan. After gathering information, Alara left the hidden chamber and returned to the observation deck overlooking Lyrina's quarters. The diplomat stood by a window, gazing at the city below. Despite the tension, her posture remained dignified, her expression calm. Alara approached cautiously. Lyrina, she said softly. The alien turned, startled, but her green eyes softened when she recognized a friendly presence. You are not a member of the court, Lyrina said. Why are you here? I am here because your life is at risk, Alara replied, and I do not intend to let you die. Lyrina's gaze flickered with surprise, then gratitude. A human, she said. I have heard of your kind, bold, fearless, sometimes reckless. Alara allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of the coming trial pressing between them. Then Lyrina spoke again. You do not understand the full danger. The court is ancient. Their rules are strict. Interference may cause more harm than good. Alara shook her head. I've faced impossible odds before. I've never walked away from someone who needed me, not now. The diplomat studied her, and Alara thought she saw a flicker of hope in Lyrina's eyes. Very well, Lyrina said. Then you must know that truth alone may not be enough. They value order above justice. Alara nodded. Then we'll need more than truth. We'll need strategy, and we'll need allies. As the suns climbed higher, the city below began to bustle with activity. Alara slipped through the streets, observing the alien citizens. They moved gracefully, their culture rich with ritual and precision. Despite their differences, she saw signs of humanity in their eyes, curiosity, fear, hope. It reminded her that all beings, no matter how alien, shared common desires: safety, respect, survival. By mid-cycle, Alara had identified several potential allies within the court. These were members who had shown hesitation during deliberations, their expressions betraying uncertainty. If she could gain their trust, she might sway the council enough to delay the execution, or even prevent it entirely. But danger lurked around every corner. Loyalist guards and spies watched the palace constantly. Any hint of interference could result in immediate capture, or worse. Alara had to be careful. Every step, every conversation, every observation mattered. As evening approached, Alara returned to Lyrina's quarters to discuss her findings. The diplomat listened intently as Alara outlined the rogue faction's plan and the court members' potential loyalties. Lyrina's eyes widened slightly as she realized the depth of the conspiracy. They seek war for power, Lyrina whispered. They will stop at nothing to achieve it. If the council believes them, countless lives will be lost. Alara's expression hardened. Then we cannot wait. We need a plan to expose them and protect you. Before the farewell ceremony, before the council makes their final judgment. Lyrina nodded, her face resolute. I will help you. Together we may have a chance. They spent the next hours reviewing strategies. Alara suggested subtle actions, gathering evidence, discreetly influencing council members, and exploiting the predictable patterns of the court. Lyrina offered insight into the court's customs and behaviors, knowledge that would be crucial for their plan. Despite the seriousness of their task, moments of human and alien camaraderie emerged. Alara learned about Lyrina's life, her dedication to peace, and her deep love for Zithra. Lyrina, in turn, learned about humanity's courage, adaptability, and refusal to accept injustice. A bond formed between them, one built on mutual respect and determination. Night fell over Zithra, the floating city shimmering under the light of the twin moons. From their vantage point in the quarters, Alara and Lyrina watched the city below, silent but vigilant. Danger was close, but so was hope. Alara knew the coming hours would be the true test. The council would reconvene, the farewell ceremony would approach, and the rogue faction would move to eliminate any threat to their plan. Every decision mattered. One misstep could cost Lyrina her life, or worse, ignite the very war they sought to prevent. But for the first time since arriving, Alara felt a surge of confidence. Humans had survived impossible odds before. They had overcome enemies stronger, smarter, and more numerous. And now, in the heart of an alien court, she would do it again. Tomorrow, she whispered to Lyrina, we change the fate of this court, and we will make sure justice prevails. Lyrina looked at her, eyes bright with hope. Then we face it together, human warrior. Alara nodded. The promise was mutual. They would fight, not just for one life, but for the truth, for peace, and for the possibility that courage could inspire change, even in the oldest, most unyielding of institutions. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting silver light across the crystalline towers, Alara reviewed her plan one final time. The pieces were in place, the allies identified, and the strategy clear. What remained was execution, and that would require everything she had learned as a warrior, every ounce of her courage, and the trust of a diplomat who had more at stake than anyone could imagine. The shadows behind the throne were long, the danger real, and the stakes higher than ever. Yet Alara felt the familiar thrill of challenge. This was what she had trained for, what humans were born to face, the impossible, and she would not fail. The night was quiet, but the war of wits, courage, and diplomacy had already begun. The first light of Zithra's suns bathed the crystalline towers in a golden shimmer, painting the floating city in colors that seemed almost unreal. From her observation deck, Captain Alara Voss watched the court stir to life, every movement a rhythm of power, tradition, and hidden tension. Today was the day the council would deliberate again, and the shadow of Lyrina's farewell ceremony loomed closer. Alara's mind worked like a finely tuned machine. She had studied the court for hours, learned the allies and adversaries, and memorized the architecture of the chambers. Humans had a reputation for unpredictability, and she intended to use that. Alien minds often followed patterns, rigid laws shaped their actions. Alara would break that rhythm. Thalir arrived at the observation deck, his usual calm expression tinged with worry. The council will convene shortly. Are you ready? Alara nodded. I am. We have allies, evidence, and timing. Now we need execution. Together, they moved through the palace corridors, careful to avoid attention. Alara's plan was subtle. She would not storm the court, nor confront the council directly. Instead, she would plant doubt, reveal hidden truths, and show that Lyrina's actions were not betrayal, but courage in the face of danger. As they approached the council chamber, Alara took note of the guards. They were not merely soldiers. Each carried a field of energy that could immobilize intruders in seconds. Their positions were strategic, covering every entrance and potential escape route. A human would be at a disadvantage in a direct confrontation. But humans were not predictable. They were creative, adaptable, and capable of thinking outside the boundaries of logic. Inside the council chamber, the court members took their seats, their forms shimmering with authority. Lyrina was led in, her expression calm and composed. Despite the tension, her posture conveyed quiet strength. Alara felt a surge of admiration. The diplomat's courage under pressure was remarkable, and it gave her a new determination to succeed. The council leader, a towering figure made of shifting energy, raised a hand. The room fell silent, as always, and all eyes turned to Lyrina. You stand accused of actions that threaten the council's authority and the security of Zithra. the leader intoned. How do you respond? Lyrina's voice was steady, carrying across the chamber. I acted to prevent conflict, to preserve lives. My loyalty to Zithra has never wavered. I acted out of responsibility and care, not betrayal. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some counselors exchanged glances, others stiffened, and a few seemed lost in thought. Alara watched closely, noting every reaction. The council was not entirely convinced, but cracks were appearing in their united front. Alara moved carefully among the observers, blending in as a neutral presence. Her eyes scanned the chamber, her mind calculating possibilities. There were counselors who could be swayed, especially those who valued reason over tradition. Her goal was simple: plant seeds of doubt and let them grow before the decision was final. Minutes passed. Lyrina continued to speak, explaining her actions with clarity and honesty. She revealed fragments of the rogue faction's plan, hinting at hidden motives without directly accusing anyone. The subtlety was brilliant. Too direct an accusation would have been dismissed, but careful implication could influence those willing to listen. Alara seized the moment. Using a small device she had brought with her, she projected evidence in a concealed corner of the chamber. Holographic images appeared briefly, showing communications, plans, and intercepted messages that proved Lyrina's intentions were noble. The projection was small, almost invisible, but enough for the right eyes to notice. A few council members leaned forward, their expressions shifting from suspicion to curiosity. Others, loyal to tradition, frowned. Alara held her breath, knowing that even one shift in perception could change the outcome. Suddenly, a guard moved toward the projection. Alara's heart raced. A wrong move could expose her. Thinking quickly, she tapped a control on her device, redirecting the hologram to a different angle. It now appeared as part of the chamber's existing display, blending seamlessly. The guard paused, confused, and then moved on. Human creativity had bought her time. As the debate continued, Alara noticed a counselor who had seemed particularly resistant to reason. Its form was rigid, almost crystalline, and its eyes glowed with a sharp light. This counselor had the power to influence the final vote, and it would take careful maneuvering to sway it. Alara leaned slightly toward a sympathetic member beside her, whispering a concise explanation of what the rogue faction had planned. The counselor's eyes widened as the realization sank in. Subtlety, patience, and trust. The human advantage was in her ability to communicate and inspire understanding in ways the aliens did not expect. Hours passed, and the tension in the chamber grew. Lyrina answered questions, countered accusations, and revealed truths with calm precision. Alara moved quietly among allies, ensuring the evidence reached those who could act, carefully avoiding attention from hostile members. Outside the chamber, the rogue faction was not idle. They watched, listened, and whispered among themselves, plotting ways to accelerate the farewell ceremony and silence any interference. Alara knew their patience was limited. One misstep could trigger immediate action. She had to be faster, smarter, and more strategic than anyone expected. During a brief recess, Alara and Lyrina met in a hidden corridor. They are considering the evidence, Lyrina said quietly, but some are still not convinced. The faction's influence is strong. Alara nodded. Then we need to give them a reason to doubt. A human cannot fight with strength alone, but we can fight with logic, timing, and courage. We will turn their own rules against them. Lyrina's expression softened with understanding. I have relied on diplomacy, on words. You rely on action. Together, we may have the advantage they do not expect. As the council reconvened, Alara implemented the next phase of her plan. She had noted a schedule of the council's discussions, patterns in their speech and gestures, and moments when they were most receptive. Using this knowledge, she subtly influenced the conversation, asking pointed questions, drawing attention to inconsistencies, and allowing doubts to grow naturally. One counselor, initially loyal to the rogue faction, began to hesitate. Its glowing eyes softened, and its gestures faltered. Alara saw the small victory and reinforced it by projecting additional evidence just out of sight. The counselor leaned forward, curiosity and concern replacing blind loyalty. Lyrina continued her testimony, her voice unwavering. She described her motivations, her concern for both Zithra and neighboring systems, and her unwillingness to allow war for personal gain. The words resonated with some members, planting seeds of empathy and understanding. Alara's human advantage became clear. Creativity, adaptability, and courage allowed her to act in ways the aliens did not anticipate. Where the court relied on protocol, she relied on intuition. Where they relied on centuries of rules, she relied on observation and strategy. Where they feared deviation, she embraced it. As the suns reached their peak, the council prepared to deliberate privately. Alara knew this would be a critical moment. Alone in their chambers, the council would discuss final judgments, free from the eyes of the public. If she could not influence this phase, all her efforts might be wasted. She and Lorena moved discreetly to positions near the chambers. Alara had arranged for allies to subtly convey the evidence and reasoning directly to key council members. Her timing had to be perfect. One misstep, one careless word, and the rogue faction would detect interference and act immediately. Inside the chambers, debate raged. Voices rose, sometimes in anger, sometimes in reasoned discussion. Alara and Lorena observed carefully, noting which members were swayed by logic and which clung to tradition. The rogue faction attempted to discredit evidence, spread fear, and manipulate opinion, but Alara's human ingenuity countered each move. She introduced inconsistencies, revealed contradictions, and allowed truth to shine through subtle persuasion rather than confrontation. Minutes felt like hours. Sweat beaded on Alara's forehead, but she remained focused. She had trained for situations like this, not in alien courts perhaps, but in battles where observation, quick thinking, and strategy determined survival. Finally, a shift occurred. One of the influential council members, previously aligned with the rogue faction, stood and spoke. Its voice carried authority, its form shimmering with controlled energy. "We must reconsider the evidence. We cannot act solely on tradition when lives are at stake." Lorena's actions may have prevented disaster. A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. Other members began to question, discuss, and debate. Doubts spread like wildfire, undermining the rogue faction's carefully constructed narrative. Alara felt a surge of triumph, tempered by caution. The battle was not over. The farewell ceremony still loomed, and the rogue faction would not surrender easily. But she had proven that even in the most rigid ancient systems, human ingenuity and courage could create change. As the council adjourned for a final vote, Lorena approached Alara. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said. "The truth is now seen. The council will be forced to listen." Alara shook her head, smiling slightly. "We have only begun. The farewell ceremony is next. That is when our real challenge starts." Together they prepared for the coming trial, their bond stronger than ever. Humans may have been new to the Court of Stars, but today they had demonstrated a simple truth. Courage, creativity, and determination could shape the destiny of even the oldest and most powerful institutions. The suns began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers. Outside, the city of Zithra glimmered in twilight, a kingdom of light, hope, and tension. Inside, the battle of wits, courage, and strategy had only just begun. The sun dipped low over Zithra, casting long golden reflections across the crystalline towers. The floating city shimmered in a cascade of colors, as if the light itself wished to honor the moment. Yet beneath this beauty, tension pulsed through every corridor, every chamber. The farewell ceremony, the moment that could decide Lorena's fate, was only hours away. Captain Alara Voss stood atop one of the observation platforms, surveying the ceremonial hall below. From this vantage point, she could see the intricate designs of the palace, the energy barriers, and the positions of every guard. Her mind worked rapidly, calculating every possible move, every contingency, every risk. The plan had to be flawless. One mistake, one misstep, and Lorena's life would be lost. Thalir approached quietly, his violet eyes reflecting concern. "They are preparing her for the ceremony. The guards are numerous and the rogue faction will be watching every detail." Alara's jaw tightened. "Then we make every second count. We cannot allow them to carry out this execution, not while I am here." Together, they moved through the palace's hidden passages, approaching the ceremonial hall from a side entrance that few noticed. The corridors were silent, lit by soft, shimmering energy that gave the impression of floating light. Every step was measured, careful. The slightest noise could alert the guards. Inside the hall, preparations were underway. Lorena had been escorted to a raised platform, adorned with intricate designs of glowing crystal. The council members took their seats in semicircular formation, their forms radiating authority. The rogue faction moved subtly among them, exchanging whispers and casting sharp glances. Every detail signaled control, confidence, and determination to enforce their plan. Alara's eyes swept the scene, memorizing the positions of every guard, every council member, and every barrier. Humans had advantages that aliens did not expect: creativity, flexibility, and unpredictability. She would use all of them tonight. A signal from Thalia confirmed the timing. It was now or never. Alara slipped closer to the platform, hiding behind crystal pillars. The guards patrolled predictably, moving in rhythm with the ceremony's rehearsed pace. Using this pattern, Alara calculated her path, noting where she could remain unseen, where she could intervene if necessary, and how she could communicate silently with allies positioned nearby. As the ceremony began, the council leader raised a hand and the hall fell into silence. "Lyrina of Zithra," the leader intoned, "you are accused of betrayal and of undermining the authority of this council. How do you respond?" Lyrina's voice was calm, steady, and filled with quiet strength. "I have acted to prevent conflict, to protect lives, and to preserve the honor of the court. My actions were guided by truth and responsibility, not betrayal." Murmurs passed through the chamber. Some counselors nodded subtly, others frowned, and a few leaned closer, listening intently. Alara noted every reaction. The council was divided, but doubt had begun to spread. The rogue faction's plan depended on unity. Divide that unity and their control would falter. Alara activated a small device hidden in her sleeve. A faint holographic projection appeared, just out of the guard's immediate view. It showed intercepted communications, evidence of the rogue faction's secret dealings, and messages proving Lyrina's intentions had been noble. A few council members noticed the holograms, their expressions shifting from suspicion to curiosity. Others ignored them, focused on maintaining appearances. Alara remained calm, letting the seeds of doubt grow silently. Suddenly, a guard turned in her direction. Alara froze, her heart pounding. In the next moment, she pressed a button, redirecting the hologram so that it appeared as part of the ceremonial display. The guard hesitated, confused, and then moved on. Human ingenuity had bought her more time. Inside the hall, Lyrina continued to speak, presenting her reasoning, her concern for both Zithra and its neighboring systems, and the dangers posed by the rogue faction. Her words resonated with some council members, planting seeds of empathy and understanding that the faction had underestimated. Alara signaled to Thalia, who subtly moved through the crowd, ensuring the sympathetic counselors received additional evidence discreetly. Every second mattered. The rogue faction would act if they detected even a hint of interference. Then the first challenge appeared. A member of the rogue faction stood, its crystalline form shimmering with energy. "Falsehoods are presented as truth," it shouted. "Lyrina has acted against the court. She seeks to undermine our authority and destroy our traditions." The chamber erupted in tension. Some council members hesitated, unsure whom to believe. Others glared at Lyrina, their loyalty to tradition and order tested. Alara took a deep breath. It was time for direct action. She moved swiftly, using shadows and pillars to approach the platform without detection. Her human advantage, speed, intuition, and creativity allowed her to navigate the hall in a way that no alien would anticipate. As she reached the base of the platform, she whispered a signal to Lyrina, who understood immediately. Timing was crucial. The diplomat had to act in tandem with Alara to ensure maximum impact. Lyrina raised her hand, and a small, concealed energy panel glowed briefly on the platform. Instantly, holographic evidence was projected above the council, displaying communications, intercepted orders, and undeniable proof of the rogue faction's intentions. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some council members covered their mouths in shock. Others leaned forward, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and realization. Even the rogue faction hesitated, caught off guard by the bold display. Alara moved closer, ensuring that any guard attempting to intervene would be blocked by subtle shifts in energy barriers she had previously activated. Humans had mastered improvisation in battle. Tonight, she applied that skill in a courtroom of stars. The council leader's form rippled, its voice calm but commanding. "The evidence presented is significant. We must deliberate carefully before proceeding with judgment." Murmurs of agreement passed through the chamber. Doubt had begun to outweigh fear. The rogue faction could sense the shift and tried to regain control, But their efforts were fragmented, uncoordinated, and too slow to counter the human strategy. Alara saw her chance. She moved to the side of the platform, remaining partially hidden but visible enough to signal key council members. With subtle gestures, she emphasized the inconsistencies in the rogue faction's arguments and highlighted the bravery and integrity of Lyrina's actions. One by one, the sympathetic counselors nodded, their support growing. Lyrina's calm presence, combined with Alara's decisive intervention, began to shift the chamber's balance. The rogue faction's hold on power was slipping. Then the council leader spoke again. "We must vote. The evidence, the testimony, and the actions presented tonight cannot be ignored. We shall determine whether Lyrina's conduct merits execution or exoneration." The tension was palpable. Every council member's vote would matter. Alara could feel her pulse quicken. She had prepared for every contingency, but the final moment always carried uncertainty. Votes were cast, energy shimmering above each member as their decisions were recorded. Silence filled the chamber as the results were tallied. The rogue faction waited with barely concealed anger, ready to act if their control slipped. Finally, the council leader raised its hand, signaling the results. "Lyrina of Zithra," it said, voice clear and resonant. "The council has reviewed all evidence and testimony. Your actions, though unorthodox, were taken in the service of truth, life, and the stability of our systems. You are exonerated." Relief swept through the chamber. Lyrina's expression softened, and Alara allowed herself a small smile. The immediate danger had passed. Humans had once again proven that courage, creativity, and determination could influence even the oldest institutions. The rogue faction seethed, but remained restrained. Their influence had been exposed, their plans thwarted, and the council would now be forced to consider their actions carefully. Alara and Lyrina met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. "We did it," Lyrina said softly, her green eyes shining with gratitude. Alara shook her head. "Not yet. There is still much to do. The rogue faction may regroup, and the council will require careful guidance to prevent future threats. But tonight, we saved lives, and that is enough for now." Thalia joined them, his expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done more than I could have hoped. Humans truly are remarkable." Alara allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "We fight when it matters. That is what makes us remarkable." As the sun set and Zithra's twin moons rose, the floating city shimmered with light and hope. The council had witnessed the power of courage and ingenuity, the impact of truth and action. Lyrina was safe, the rogue faction's plan exposed, and humanity had earned respect across the court. Tonight, the Court of Stars had learned a lesson. Bravery, creativity, and determination could shape the destiny of even the most ancient and powerful institutions. And humans, unpredictable and bold, could be the difference between injustice and survival. The sun rose over Zithra, painting the floating city with soft golden light that reflected off the crystalline towers. The air was calm, almost peaceful, but Alara Voss knew that the day ahead would be full of challenges. The immediate danger of the farewell ceremony had passed, yet the rogue faction lingered like shadows, waiting for any opportunity to strike. The council still needed to reconcile, and Lyrina's position, though safe, remained delicate. Alara stood on a balcony overlooking the city, her eyes scanning the towers and platforms below. She had faced impossible odds before, but nothing compared to navigating an alien court. Here, power was not measured by strength alone. It was measured by influence, cunning, and the ability to understand beings whose thoughts and customs differed entirely from her own. Thalia joined her, his violet eyes reflecting concern. "The council will convene again today. They must formally review the rogue faction's actions. This is the final opportunity to secure lasting peace." Alara nodded. "Then we make it count. Truth has power, but sometimes it needs guidance to be understood. We cannot leave anything to chance." Together, they moved through the palace, avoiding attention from the guards who still patrolled vigilantly. Inside the council chambers, preparations were underway for a formal review of the rogue faction's plans and motives. Members who had been swayed by Lyrina's courage and the evidence Alara had presented were quietly preparing to speak. Those who remained loyal to tradition or fearful of disruption were cautious but present. Lyrina entered the chamber alongside Alara. The room fell silent, every eye turning toward the diplomat and the human warrior who had intervened so boldly. For a moment, Alara felt the weight of their expectations and the responsibility she carried. This was no longer about survival, it was about shaping the future of Zithero itself. The council leader's form shimmered, its voice resonant. Today, we review the evidence against the rogue faction and determine how to proceed. The actions of Lyrina of Zithera have been called into question, and the intervention of Captain Alara Voss has brought new insight. Murmurs swept through the chamber. Some council members whispered in disbelief, others with relief. The rogue faction's representatives stiffened, their energy glowing sharply as they sensed that their carefully constructed plans were unraveling. Alara stepped forward, her presence commanding attention without force. "Members of the council," she began, her voice steady and clear, "what has happened here is not merely a question of protocol or tradition. It is a question of justice, of responsibility, and of the lives that could have been lost if truth had been ignored." Lyrina acted with courage, foresight, and integrity. The rogue faction sought to manipulate the council for their own gain, risking countless lives across the sector. The chamber was silent. Even the rogue faction's allies listened, unwilling to interrupt the human's confident explanation. Alara continued, presenting evidence with precision. Holographic panels displayed intercepted communications, secret orders, and plans that revealed the faction's intentions. Every council member had access, and the truth could no longer be ignored. Lyrina stepped forward beside her. "I did what I believed was right," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I sought to prevent unnecessary conflict and to protect lives. My loyalty has always been to Zithera and to the council itself. The truth must guide our decisions, not fear or personal ambition." For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The council members exchanged glances, weighing words and evidence carefully. The rogue faction attempted to respond, but their arguments were fragmented, defensive, and easily dismantled by the overwhelming proof of their manipulation. Finally, the council leader raised its hand. "We have heard the testimony, seen the evidence, and considered the consequences of all actions. It is clear that Lyrina acted in service to Zithera and to the greater good. The rogue faction has attempted to manipulate this council for personal gain and has endangered countless lives. Their actions are unacceptable." A ripple of surprise and relief passed through the chamber. Even some councilors who had hesitated began to nod, acknowledging the truth they could no longer deny. The leader continued, its voice firm. "The rogue faction shall be removed from positions of influence and held accountable according to the laws of the council. Their plans have been exposed and their threat neutralized. Lyrina of Zithera is fully exonerated and recognized for her service to peace and the stability of the sector." Alara felt a wave of relief wash over her. The immediate danger was over, but she knew that securing lasting peace would require careful guidance and ongoing vigilance. The council had learned an important lesson, but the seeds of future challenges remained. Lyrina approached Alara, her green eyes filled with gratitude. "You have done more than I could have imagined. You have saved lives, not just mine, but countless others. The council will remember this day." Alara shook her head, smiling faintly. "We did it together. Humans may be new to the Court of Stars, but courage, creativity, and determination can make a difference anywhere, even here." Thalir joined them, his expression reflecting admiration and relief. "Captain Voss, you have shown that humanity possesses qualities that are rare even among the oldest civilizations. You have changed the course of events with intellect, bravery, and strategy." Alara allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "Then let this be a beginning. Not just for Lyrina or for Zithera, but for all beings who value truth and justice." The council adjourned for a formal ceremony of recognition. Lyrina was honored for her courage and wisdom, and Alara received a unique acknowledgement, a rare tribute from an alien civilization to a human for her role in preserving life and justice. The gesture was unprecedented and symbolized the growing respect humanity was earning among the stars. Outside, the city of Zithera gleamed in the light of the twin moons. Floating platforms and towers shimmered like jewels, reflecting the peace that had been restored. Citizens moved about, unaware of the intricate battle of wits, courage, and diplomacy that had just unfolded within the council chambers. Alara walked alongside Lyrina and Thalir, the three of them moving through the corridors of the palace. Their bond, formed through shared risk and mutual respect, had grown stronger with every challenge. Each understood the other's strengths and limitations, and each had learned from the other. "Captain Voss," Lyrina said softly, "your presence here has changed more than my fate. You have shown that even a single human can influence the destiny of an entire council, and perhaps even a sector. Humanity will be remembered here." Alara shrugged modestly. "We all make choices when it matters. You acted with courage, and I acted with what I know best: strategy, observation, and timing. Together, we created change. That is all any of us can do." Thalia nodded in agreement. "It is a rare thing indeed to see such collaboration between species. The Council has learned that strength comes not only from power or tradition, but also from courage, adaptability, and wisdom." As they reached the observation deck overlooking the city, Lyrina gazed at the horizon, where the twin suns had set and the stars began to shine. "There is still work to be done," she said. "The Council will require guidance to prevent future manipulation, and the galaxy itself remains full of challenges. But today, we have proven that courage and truth can prevail." Alara placed a hand on Lyrina's shoulder. "Then let us continue to do what we can. One victory does not end the journey, but it lights the path forward. Humanity will stand with you, as allies, as friends, and as witnesses to justice." Below, the city pulsed with life. Ships moved gracefully between towers, citizens of countless species mingled on platforms, and energy fields glowed softly, reflecting the peace that had been restored. The Court of Stars had been tested, and it had seen the value of unexpected allies, of courage in the face of tradition, and of truth standing firm against manipulation. Alara knew that the story of today would be told for generations. It would be remembered as the day a human warrior refused to let a life be taken unjustly, the day diplomacy and courage triumphed over fear and deception, and the day that Zithra, and perhaps the galaxy, learned that bravery, creativity, and determination could change the course of history. As night settled over the city, the three stood together, gazing at the stars beyond Zithra. Somewhere among them, countless civilizations watched, unaware of the subtle ripple of change that had begun here. Humanity had shown its worth, not through conquest, but through courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Lyrina turned to Alara. "You have my deepest gratitude, human warrior. Today you have proven that life, truth, and justice are worth any risk." Alara smiled. "And you have reminded me that even in the most alien and complex places, bravery and wisdom can light the way. We've done well. Let's make sure we continue to do well." Above, the stars shone brightly, as if acknowledging the triumph of courage and hope. In the Court of Stars, humanity had earned a place of respect, not through domination, but through the quiet power of integrity, ingenuity, and moral strength. And so, the chapter closed on this day of trials, courage, and triumph. The Court of Stars had learned a lesson that would endure, that even in the most ancient and powerful institutions, a single individual, guided by truth and courage, could change the course of destiny. For Captain Alara Voss, human warrior and champion of justice, the journey continued. But for now, she allowed herself a moment to breathe, to witness the peace she had helped secure, and to know that humanity's light had shone brightly among the stars.